Right, the ANC is hosting a media dialogue on policy discussion document for economic transformation. The dialogue will be led by the head of economic transformation, Mmamoloko Kubayi. For more on this story, let's now take you to SABC News economics reporter Nompu Siziba at the ANC Headquarters in Luthuli House in Johannesburg. Nompu, great to have you on the program this morning. What are some of the economic policies of interest this morning there?
Thanks very much, Mkolisi. Well, of course, the ANC has issued its policy documents that was about 2 weeks ago, and this is ahead of their policy conference, which is set to take place towards the end of July. The ANC wants to wrap up all of its provincial conferences ahead of that, and hopefully, if all of that is squared off, then it will take place towards the end of July. Of interest, really, is obviously it covers the economy. Their documents cover the economy, talking about a myriad of issues with the view, of course, to addressing issues around inequality, poverty and unemployment, and redressing the imbalances of the past because of the apartheid system many, many years ago. But when they issued the documents 2 weeks or so ago, and one peruses through them, you don't really see that much of a difference from what they had issued in previous times. So they talk about the usual themes. So, for example, they talk about the importance of inclusive economic growth. They talk about the private sector doing a lot more to help SMEs, especially when it comes to the loaning of money at concessional or reasonable rates so that it can encourage economic development. They talk about transformation, ensuring transformation through public procurement. And we know some of the issues that have arisen through public procurement and some of the dodgy deals that have been done as a result, and not necessarily translating in that broad-based black economic empowerment that the ANC has been speaking about. They talk about the Reserve Bank. There's still a yearning for the Reserve Bank to go back to being a nationally owned entity rather than having private shareholders. It's something that they raise again in their papers, but they also indicate that it may be difficult to make that a reality because there may be cost implications. In order to get private investors or private shareholders out, they would have to perhaps pay a lot of money for that to happen, money that we can't necessarily afford. They talk about climate change. Of course, climate change has become a stronger feature globally and in economic policy, about transitioning and ensuring that people are not left behind. But what's interesting as well, and it's somewhat of a contradiction, although it's understandable, is that the ANC is very keen for there to be exploration in the area of oil and gas. Now, we know that these particular technologies are dirty. They're characterized as dirty. Now, do we want to go down the road as South Africa of investing millions, perhaps billions, in exploring these things, only to find that down the line, if we have surplus of them, we can't actually export them because the rest of the world doesn't want dirty fuels or dirty, dirty exports. So very interesting elements coming out, but they are really covering the whole of the economy. It's not a very definitive document, though, and hopefully we are going to get some political or economic analysts to give us their view on whether they think there's anything dramatically different about the papers, and to what extent the ANC is going to be able to translate this into reality. They've been in power for 28 years. They've done a lot of good, but then there's still a long way to go as well in terms of their aims. They talk about the usual stuff, basic service delivery, ensuring that people have access to water, electricity, and so on and so forth. We know the challenges that we're having currently with electricity supply and the need to actually speed up our move towards renewable energy. We know that we have certain bids that have been delayed. The emergency electricity bid for renewable energy, that's still in the working because of, various legal actions and so on and so forth. So great policies, but we need to see that they're actually enacted. And of course, come July, the end of July, there'll be deliberations about this. Going back to the whole issue of the Reserve Bank, I doubt very much that they're ever going to be able to resolve that, simply because they're worried about the cost of ensuring that private shareholders are taken off the books there. So, Mkolisi, that's where I'm going to leave it. We are set to be live on the ANC briefing soon, so perhaps you will check into that a bit later.
Indeed, Nompu, we will be coming back to you a bit later on in the program as soon as that press briefing gets underway. Indeed, SABC News economics reporter Nompu Siziba joining us there live from the Luthuli House here in Johannesburg. She'll be coming back to us a bit later on in the program.